Greetings, old school magic players, and welcome to the Four Horsemen.
Greetings, old school magic players. Welcome to the Four Horsemen on a Tuesday night. John and I are here together once again. We're covering our tournament number 12 semifinals. Evening, John.
Hey, how's it going, Chad?
Good, man. Thanks for joining me covering these semifinals matches tonight. This has been a long-awaited match. We are almost through tournament 12. And for the viewers, if you've been watching our previous videos, it's been a real interesting tournament with lots of really cool decks. We ran this tournament from February 22nd to March 24th. And we are all the way into the semifinals brackets. John played Barry in the other semifinals match, and you can check that video out on the channel as well. And tonight we're covering Peter versus Philip. Peter is running a blue-red deck that he named Bounce It, Flip It, Bop It, and Philip is running a Land Tax, Land's Edge, Ball Lightning deck, which we call Tax Edge Lightning. Let's look at the decks real quick. John, you probably have had a chance to go through the deck reviews and predictions video that we did with Peter, Parker, Michael, and I over the weekend last week. And did you have any comments you wanted to make on Peter's red-blue build?
I mean, it's just pretty solid. I think it plays a lot of the best cards in the format, and it plays a lot of answers. I mean, that's really a deck full of answers, which is great. It's kind of a good send-off to the 4 times mana drain.
Yeah.
As we won't be seeing that again.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually there's this tiny bit of splash of green just for Sylvan Library, but it's predominantly a blue-red deck, and it is all the best of the best. Rook Eggs, Mana Drains, Chain Lightnings, Falling Stars, Serendipity, Time Elemental, Jaloom Tomes, and then probably the more interesting cards are things like the Immolation, which in talking with Peter, he said, look, I see this as just an extra Chain Lightning, basically. And also things like Boomerang, and then really powerful flyers like Ghost Ship, which regenerates. So really, really strong deck. Answers in the sideboard with Blood Moon and Amnesia and Artifact Blast and Flash Counter. So yeah, really, really robust deck. John, let's take a look at Philip's deck, the Tax Edge Lightning deck. What do you think of this red-white Tax Edge Lightning build?
I think Tax Edge is a pretty good strategy in this format, and I actually think we're going to see more of it now with Mana Drain restricted. But even in this tournament, it seems to stand up pretty well. I mean, obviously he made it to the quarterfinals. I think those Blood Moons in his sideboard are pretty important in this matchup against Peter. You know, the land tax is pretty solid. I do like that he has the Winds of Change to recycle the cards that he draws and possibly turn them into playables. Falling Star is just a super great card that they're both playing. It's funny, though. I don't think it's that relevant in this particular matchup to either of them. I mean, I guess it kills Peter's Time Elementals. But, you know, Philippe's just playing some little creatures for extra pressure early, but if they get killed, it's not like it's the end of his game plan.
Yeah.
He still has the Tax Edge strategy to build too.
Yeah, and you know, we talked quite about this with the guys, you know, kicking around the different ideas that it's really all about trying to get in a little early damage with things like the Tundra Wolves or the Brass Man and a Bloodlust, or a Ball Lightning. If you can get in any of those early and get, you know, anywhere from 5 to 6 points of damage in, then that gives you the edge, so that when you get Land's Edge, you know you're not having to worry about getting killed yourself if your opponent is holding lands and ditches them. So, you know, it's an interesting strategy to get things like Brass Man and Tundra Wolves and Ball Lightning into this deck.
I also like that he can play the immolation on the Brass Man if he needs to, and turn it into a 3/1, which is kind of fun.
Yeah,
he can play the Brass Man turn 1, and then if nothing's going on and he doesn't think it's going to get, you know, killed if he's not playing against red or whatever, he can just drop that on there and start beating in for 3 starting on turn 2.
Yeah. I found it interesting that he decided not to go with Rook Egg in this deck, especially considering he's running Chain Lightnings and Falling Stars.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been really easy for him to crack his own eggs, which seems like a pretty good strategy, but the only creatures he's playing are, you know, these little guys. I mean, I guess Ball Lightning's 3, but it's got haste, so he just wants to get in that damage so that he can finish him off with the Tax Edge. And I think he probably thought Rook Egg was just too slow for this strategy.
Yeah. Looking at his sideboard, he's got 1 cleansing. He had a proxy there, and I put the actual card image over. An extra Land's Edge, the mandatory 4 active volcanoes, the 3 Blood Moons, 4 Divine Offerings, and the awesome dual King Suleiman's up there. You know, that cleansing card is real interesting because it says all lands are destroyed, and players may prevent cleansing from destroying specific lands by paying 1 life for each land to protect that land. Effects that prevent, you know, the damage cannot be used to counter the loss of life. So for 3 white, it's kind of like extra damage or an Armageddon or somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, it's an extra way, I feel like, to get in there for some extra damage and make the Tax Edge strategy viable. Yeah. I mean, cards like that are the kind of like browbeat effect where the opponent gets to choose are always kind of suboptimal because they're just going to choose whatever's best for them. But generally, they're not going to want to sacrifice their lands, at least early in the game. I suppose late game, if this was going to close the game, they might sack them and buy themselves some time. But yeah. It's funny, Cleansing is not a card that I've seen anybody try to play for like 30 years. And then starting in tournament, well, maybe it was this one because 12 was a bit ago. Like I saw like 3 or 4 different players run it. It's just interesting to see these cards popping up in this format.
Yeah, it's a really kind of out of left field, inexpensive. I think it's $3 or $4. You know, rarely played card. But in this case, what I think is interesting about Cleansing is it can help you trigger land tax. So if your opponent is sticking to the playing scheme of not playing more lands than you, well, you can play this and you don't pay the life and you can sacrifice lands. So this card is a great card to have against other decks that you think might, you know, hold on to their lands in terms of what they're putting into play and thereby not allowing you to trigger land tax.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of a clever way to just sack your own lands to get, you know, just 1 below them so that you can start taxing again.
Yeah. Well, and so we'll get into the match here. In all full disclosure, Peter did talk about how him and Philip worked on this deck together, and they tweaked this deck, and they just happened to get paired up in the semifinals here based on their records. So, you know, Peter knows this deck really well because he helped Philip build it. So, you know, that's going to be influential in the match, I think, the fact that he knows the deck extremely well.
Well, and also it's interesting that he, I think, was going to play that deck, and then once they finished it, he was like, well, how about I build something different? So, you know, he kind of had the leg up knowing that he might play against this deck, you know, at some point in the tournament.
Right. Yeah, a lot of players help each other with their decks. We have a very friendly group, and so this happens quite a bit. You and I have done tons of deck testing over the year and a half we've been playing in this format, and it's not uncommon. But yeah, you kind of like raise an eyebrow. You don't really want players like building certain decks and going, all right, now I got to build a deck to beat that deck. But I mean, it's really great that we have a group of friendly players who share information and help each other out and do deck testing and fine tuning and stuff like that. It makes for a really cool group.
And it's funny because it can kind of backfire in its own way, because you and I have played so much that we'll tool our decks to be better against the other guy, but we then realize that we made it worse against the field.
Yes.
So it I mean, there's certainly something to be said for taking the entire field into account when you're making your adjustment.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I think we are ready to get into the match. John, do you have your video queued up so we can watch along?
I do. I'm ready to kick it off at 1.5.
All right. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And off we go. Okay, so John, you recorded this match for us, but it was quite a while back. Sometime in February.
Yeah, it was, and I don't believe I actually watched this one. I think I just turned the recording on for them, and then let them went and watched a show or something.
Yeah. Okay. So you got Philippe on the right, you got Peter on the left with his Jasmine Boreal, favorite play method he always runs. And there it is, first turn land tax for Philip, right out of the gate.
That man on the right, is that like Assassin's Creed or something?
I think it is. It kind of looks like that, right? I don't know what playmat that is or what art that is, but it kind of reminds me of that. Okay, now this is where the little creatures that come in for 1, like Brassman and Tundra Wolves, are so useful. And this was part of the strategy that Peter was talking about. He's like, hey, the risk of the land tax deck, and there's the emulation for the wolf. The risk of the land tax deck.
Yeah, so see, this is what I'm saying. It's kind of interesting that Peter knows the strategy of that deck is to play 1 land and then play guys and force the other opponent, to just start playing lands in order to get in the game, because most decks really can't function with 1 land. But Peter's just got enough 1-drop removal spells that as long as he can remove whatever single threat, that's really interesting to me that they both just chain lightninged each other. I understand why Philippe did it, because he's trying to win the race, but like, it's really interesting to me that Peter is also participating in this and not saving those for removal. Maybe he just has a ton of them in his hand. I don't know. He pretty quickly whipped off 2 chain lightnings in a row there.
Right.
This triple lands edges or land taxes cracking me up.
Yeah, he's got 3 land taxes now. I think the reason Peter was doing that is because Peter does not want to play a land, and he doesn't want to allow Philip to trigger land tax. So he's just using the chain lightnings instead of discarding
just so
lands.
He doesn't have to discard.
Yeah. And he actually wants to hold lands in case Philip does get Land's Edge, because then he can have a shot at maybe killing Philip too. Peter's way ahead. Well, not way ahead, but he's 3 points ahead in life right now.
I do commend Peter for the for being patient and not giving in, but at the same time, now it's just much worse. So now, when he eventually decides he needs to play a land, Philippe's going to be able to triple tax and potentially, shuffle all those cards away and get a bunch more cards.
Yeah. Now the trick here is Philip's hand is probably fairly full, and he doesn't have enough mana in play to cast Land's Edge, so he's probably not gonna. Well, he did grab 3 lands. I'm surprised he grabbed 3 lands. I might have just grabbed 2 in this scenario. so that I don't end up having to discard. But maybe he has a land to play and another creature to play. It'd be awesome if he could play. Nope, he's discarding.
I'm surprised. So, I mean, maybe he just doesn't have a Winds of Change in hand. But if I had a Winds of Change in hand, I probably would have taken the full 9 lands and then just shuffled a bunch of stuff away to try to get a bunch of playables. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, Peter gets,
but I don't know. I don't know what he has. So
Peter gets a strip mine there, which is restricted, and strips the factory. The factory would have been the perfect answer to win this game. I mean, Philip would have won the game because there's no instant damage in Peter's deck. So you can't chain lightning he could
have went away with it. I don't know if he would have went the distance. Yeah, Peter's going to continue to play other things.
He would have had like Serendib or Freed or something, but he certainly wouldn't be able to get in for at least, let's say, 4 damage or something like that before Peter might have an answer. Okay, so Philip land taxes again, plays a second plateau, and now Peter is just going full on. Not sure if that strategy of not playing a land, not playing into land tax was really worth it, but we'll find out. So next turn, Philip can play land tax, but Peter also likely will have mana drain. This is the problem with unrestricted mana drain. Well, there's a ball lightning and a remove soul. When you have a deck like land tax, Land's Edge, and you've got 4 mana drains, and 4 remove souls, it becomes very, very hard to actually be able to cast the Land's Edge at any point in the game because your opponent just holds on to the mana drain.
Yeah, right, and you don't really want to cast the Land's Edge until you're ready to kill them, so the guy's gonna have a counter for it by the time you get there.
Yeah, and there's Chain Lightning number 3, I believe. That's a lot of Chain Lightning. It's very early. I wonder why Philip didn't bounce it back there. He had the 2 red with the plateaus. Oh, it's because he was tapped out from playing Land's Edge. Okay, now oh, sorry, for playing the ball lightning. Now he plays Land's Edge, and Peter's got the mana drain for that. That's rough. And so Philip plays a brass man.
Yeah, I feel like the whole game just turns the corner right here when that happens.
Yeah, because he couldn't get in with the damage on the ball lightning. It got remove sold, and now the Land's Edge gets mana drained. Peter drops a factory and casts a ghost ship and a time elemental. Holy crap. Now is when Philip needs to have the Land's Edge in hand. And that is a Spirit Link, I believe. So the ghost ship is Spirit Linked. But now Peter can start bouncing things with the time elemental. What do you think, John? It's not looking good for Philip, huh?
Well, I mean, he's kind of almost got a soft lock now because he can just bounce anything he plays. He's just going to chip in with that ghost ship for...
Well, the ghost ship's Spirit Linked at the moment.
Oh, right. But he can just capsize it with a time elemental to get rid of the Spirit Link.
Right, yep.
It doesn't look like he's even going to bother, though, because he's got a dib.
Here comes the dib. I wonder at what point in Magic did people start calling Serendib a free dib?
That is a good question.
Okay, so Philip casts a ball lightning here. And he's attacking with that, so that may have at least a couple points of damage in trample. Oh, okay. So Peter elects to block with the... Oh, Peter elected to block with the ghost ship, so Philip should gain 6 life there from the ball lightning. Did he gain the 6 life?
He did not. Oh, is he adding it right now? No.
Yeah, that ball lightning gives him 6 life, so he should go from...
Well, no, it should give him however much, just 2 life that the ghost ship...
no, because he spirit linked the ghost ship. Oh, the ghost ship only did 2 damage. Okay, so he should have gained 2 life and then trampled for 2 damage.
Yeah.
Did they do that correctly?
He did. Peter did grab another die. I think I thought he was at 11 and went up to 12. Should have went to 13, but maybe I'm looking at it wrong. I don't know.
There's 2 of you in the whereby. That's funny.
Oh yeah. So I walked away and let this record on my computer, but then when I was in the other room, I joined on my phone for a minute so I could see what was going on in the match.
Okay, yeah, I've done that before. Yeah, it's looking really rough for Philip here because he's just going to be staring down mana drains anytime he gets another Land's Edge. He did try to get it in by putting the ball lightning out there first, hoping that Peter didn't have the remove soul, but of course he did. Okay, so Peter returns his Serendib to his hand and plays it again to get the spirit link off of it that Philip put on the Serendib. Yeah, I think the fact that Peter helped Philip build this deck just gives him a tremendous advantage here in this match. And of course, his deck is basically built to beat this deck and many other decks.
Our deck lists are open for the top 8, so I mean he would have seen the deck anyway.
Yeah.
Before playing him, but yeah, he does have a bit more intimate knowledge of how it functions.
Yeah. And he knows exactly what he has to watch out for, which is helpful. Okay, so it looks like Philip did attack with the 2 brass men to get in for a couple extra points. And it looks like Peter is on 7. And Philip's on 9. Is that how they're tracking life here? Okay, yeah. And so now Philip is on 4. This is interesting. Peter puts the immolation on the Serendib Efreet. That's pretty good, turning the Serendib Efreet into a 4/2 flyer.
5, even.
Oh, sorry, a 5/2 flyer.
Yeah. So yeah, I've seen him do that a number of times in this tournament. Either put it on a Serendib or on a ghost ship to have a stronger flyer coming in, and that's it. He's scooping it up.
Yep. All right. Well, let's let this match play, and let's go back over to the decks. If you want to switch back over to Whereby John, we can take a look at the deck pictures again and talk about what we think you would want to sideboard.
Sure.
Let's start with Peter's deck. I'm looking at his sideboard and I'm thinking maybe I would just put in 1 Amnesia.
The Amnesia doesn't seem awful. I mean, it's not at its best because it's, Philippe's playing a bunch of low-cost stuff, but he will probably get his Land's Edge that is sitting in his hand and perhaps other cards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's potentially he's going to have a bunch of lands in his hand, so it's not going to hit those, but it might be all right. I don't know. Maybe the Maze for just early, to make it to the mid game. It'd be good against ball lightnings, good against early attackers. I don't know. That seems to be about it. He doesn't really need the other. So maybe the ivory tower if he really wants to.
Yeah, and then he can sit around and wait out some life. He probably doesn't need the detonates. I mean, he could use the detonates on the brass man, but I think he's got enough utilities between the falling stars, and he can get 2 for 1. So, yeah, I think I'd pull out the detonates and put in the amnesia and the ivory tower. What do you think about Philip's sideboard? Obviously, the mandatory 4 active volcanoes go in, right?
Yeah, I think he's gonna want those blood moons too.
Well, I mean, what does blood moons stop? I guess it turns the taigas into mountains, and it turns the active volcanoes into mountains, and the city of brass into mountains. Yeah, so you're right.
It just kind of shut them off from everything but blue.
Right.
And then he's got his active volcanoes to destroy the blue stuff.
Yeah.
He also could put in those King Suleimans against the Ifrits if he wants to. Maybe one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Them both.
Yeah. So the guys are getting shuffled up here. I think, I would put in the 2 King Suleimans and the 3 blood moons and the 4 active volcanoes. So that's 8, 9, what is it, 8, 9, that's 10 cards? No, 9 cards. So I'd pull out the Winds of Change, I'd pull out the Brass Man, and I'd probably pull out the Falling Star, and maybe even the Immolations, because the Immolations definitely need to come out. So yeah, I'd take out the 2 Immolations, the 4 Winds of Change, that's 6, and then I'd take out maybe 3 of the Brass Men, and put in those other 9. All right, the guys are getting shuffled. Would you put in the cleansing?
No, I don't think so. There's too many other cards coming in already. If he brings in all those cards you suggested, that's a lot of cards to have to take out.
Yeah.
Like, what does he take out for all of that?
Well, I just said the 2 Immolations. I don't really think the Winds of Change buys you that much against.
I mean, Immolation kills Time Elemental, though. I don't know if you want to get rid of that.
Immolation does kill Time Elemental. That's a very good point. It kills Time Elemental. So maybe pulling out the Winds of Change and the Brass Man for 8 would be better. Also, he's got a 4th Land's Edge in his deck that he could sideboard in as well, which might be useful since all the mana drains are hanging out. Okay, these guys are drawing their cards, so let's switch back over to the match here. Okay, it looks like Peter's taking a mulligan.
You don't see that very often.
Right?
I don't remember if Philippe gets a game in here or not. I hope he does. We've had a lot of 2-0 sweeps in the top 8s in the matchups that we end up with.
Yeah, it's true. We have a lot of 2-0s. Oh, check this out. So Philippe gets a first turn land tax again, which is really good. That's probably obviously why he kept his opening hand. And a Hammerheim for Peter. Now that's interesting. Peter does not have the blue land to start off here. So now Peter's in a real predicament because he needs to get to his double blue. Looks like he just passes. And there's the brass man. Okay, so Interesting. Philip elected to leave the brass men in. Too bad brass man isn't 1-4. Right?
Yeah, it would be nice, right? Because then he could maybe actually stick it. Like, Peter's got a red, so he's probably going to. Well, the nice thing though is immolation won't kill it. It needs to be a chain lightning.
Yeah.
Immolation will just make it bigger.
Right. And I guess that's another reason for Philip to leave the immolations in, is if he could hit for 1 on turn 1, and then on turn 2, there's the chain lightning, of course. Wow. I mean, 4 out of 60, and you gotta have it.
It's funny how long he thought about that, given the fact that he actually just had it and played it. That was weird.
That was weird.
Like, was he second guessing? Was he just like, do I really want to kill a one power guy? And then it's like, yeah, I do, because I want to like not let him get any early pressure in at all. And what else is he going to use the chain lightning for? I mean, nothing.
Direct damage to Philip.
Yeah,
possibly.
Which he doesn't really need.
Right. Okay, so I cannot tell what he discarded. The glare is really bad on Peter's side. But Philip gets a second land tax off of his plateau, which is going to allow him to double trigger land tax. But here we are in the land tax waiting game again. Last time Peter ended up with all 4 of his chains lightnings in the match, plus the immolations. Okay, so Peter gives in, and Philip triggers land tax. Now, if I were Philip here, I would not be getting more lands than I can play or hold in my hand. I would just get 2 if I wouldn't want to be discarding lands quite yet, because I want to maximize the number of lands I can throw when I play Land's Edge. But the other philosophy is get all the lands and discard all the lands, because you can just get more, and you're thinning lands out of your deck. So he's getting all the lands and discarding a couple of lands there, playing a mountain. What do you think, John? Is it better to thin your deck and get the lands out?
To work with, which is, a fair amount, maybe a little bit more than you would have if you were playing in, I don't know, some other format with the same archetype.
Do you think it's better to get all the lands out of your deck or early like this? Like get the maximum and discard them?
I don't know. Not if you're going to have to discard them. It's just a waste of resources.
But I think you
should just only get as many as you can use without having to discard.
But the counter argument is it reduces the probability that draw for your turn is going to also be a land.
Not by enough, I don't think.
Slightly. Yeah, I've always debated this. I think it's situational too, and it depends on what's going on in the rest of the game. Okay, so he gets all 3 lands again here. 2 plains and a mountain. Peter now has his volcanic island, so he's got his double blue. Now he can just sit back and wait for mana drain to mana drain whatever he needs to. Alright, so Philip has triple red now. So there's the ball lightning. And there's the remove soul. That's a remove soul. Yeah. So Peter had that. Looks like Peter's down to 4 cards, down to 3 cards. He got his factory again. Wow. Okay. That could be helpful.
Yeah, factory is pretty good.
Alright, so Philip is going to land tax again, getting 3 more lands. So now his deck is going to be getting very thin on basic lands, but he can play a land if he wants, because Peter's down to 4, or up to 4. He needs some mana drain bait, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, now this is interesting. Active Volcano. He hasn't played a land yet. This is very interesting. Check this out, John. What do you think of that? He's playing Active Volcano on one of the islands. He's going to bounce that island back.
Why?
So Peter can't mana drain.
Yeah, but like it just seems like such a short-term gain to waste that card that could destroy something.
Yeah, but
if to try to play a trick and bounce something to play some crappy 1 or 2 drop.
Well, if he
like,
plays,
what's he gonna play a 1 drop?
If he played a land here for his turn. Oh,
so the winds of change is what he wanted to protect. So I guess that's
winds of change.
All right, I guess.
I was hoping that he had Land's Edge here, and he could get the Land's Edge in because he could bounce that island, and then he could play a land for turn because he hasn't played a land for turn yet, and then he would have the 3 mana to play Land's Edge. But I don't know how many lands Peter would have been holding in his hand. I think he had 4 cards or 3 cards. Couldn't have been that many. So he should have had a whole handful of land, but he's been discarding all those lands. Okay, he plays a strip mine, and he strips the factory. Interesting. Not the island.
I mean, that I like. He knows that he's going to play another blue, but like getting rid of the 1-of factory really removes a win condition from Peter's side of the board.
Yeah, and if he happens to have a bloodlust, he and knowing that Peter's factory is gone, he knows he can probably get in for some damage, but there's an immolation. Ah, damn. Man, Peter always has it. We need to get him a t-shirt.
The man of many answers.
we need to get Peter a t-shirt for his birthday that says I always have it. All right, here's the ball lightning. So, oh my god, he's got the mana drain. Jesus Christ. Holy crap. Man, Philip must be so just frustrated right now because that's.
I know that he's trying to like do his best to like get damage in, but I don't think you can just like run your spells into the double blue like that playing against a 4 mana drain deck, because now Peter's gonna get this huge leg up where he just plays 2 creatures this turn if he has them, using that extra mana.
And if one of them is time elemental, then it's becomes very...
it's just kind of game over, like he's...
But what's he supposed to do? Is he supposed to sit back and not play the ball lightning? I mean, he's got to try and get in for the damage. And he also wants to draw out the mana drains so that Peter doesn't have them for the Land's Edge.
Not with a 3-cost spell, though. Like, I feel like the ball lightning's particularly poorly positioned here. In fact, I would have sided the ball lightnings out for some of those sideboard cards, I think. But here we go. So same exact play as last game. He has 4 lands out. He gets a mana drain, and then he gets a ghost ship and a time elemental. Like,
but
pretty good.
But here Philippe gets to double land tax, so he should be able to get 6 lands. However, here's an example of why you leave the basics and you don't discard. Philip should be able to get a minimum of 6 lands here and draw, but he's out of basic lands because he was drawing them early. So now he can play Land's Edge, but he doesn't have 10 lands in hand, does he?
I don't think so.
No. But he did shuffle his lands back into his no, he didn't. You don't shuffle your graveyard. So I think he's out of basic lands because he was drawing those lands and discarding so many of them. If he had not done that, he could have gotten 6 lands, and if he had 4 in his hand, Peter would be dead. So I think that's a reason in this particular scenario to not draw those basic lands, only to discard them, because then they're not there when you get this double land tax scenario like we did here. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think it's better to leave them in your deck for later, for sure. I mean, once you discard them, they're just gone. Like, you don't have a way to get them back. And so you're just wasting a resource.
Unless you're running Felden's Cane.
Yeah, and in this deck, that just a land isn't just a land. It's a potential shock down the line, or it's something to shuffle away with Winds of Change for more cards. So, like, it really is a resource that you're losing if you get too much and discard them.
Okay, so Philip chain lightnings Peter, and then discards a land, taking Peter down to 4, and then plays Winds of Change again. So I guess he's hoping to draw 2 lands here.
I mean, if he does, it's game, right?
If he does, it's game, but he has taken a lot of land out of his deck. So 1, 2, 3. He only is drawing 3 cards.
I mean, normally when you draw 3 fresh cards, you don't want them all to be lands, but he does here.
Yeah, but I think he's filtered out too many of his basic lands with all those land tax, early land taxes. All right, so Peter throws a land away to do 2 to Philip here. Attacks with the ghost ship. It's interesting that Peter does not have enough mana to activate the time elemental. What's he mana draining here? He's mana draining. He mana drained another Winds of Change.
I mean, that is what's on top of the graveyard, so it must be.
All right, and so then Philippe plays the Brassman and the Wolves, but those are not going to do him any good right now, unless he gets a Bloodlust or a Bloodlust.
Yeah, they're just not good enough. They don't fly, and I don't know. Does he use the extra mana? Nope, he has mana to play another creature. If he didn't have a creature in hand, he could have bounced something, but creature's better.
Yeah, especially with the ability to regenerate here.
So the question is, does he attack here with one of his guys or not? Like, how conservative is he?
No, because he's got 3 blockers. There's no point in attacking.
Well, he's only got 2 blockers.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Peter. Yeah,
this Peter.
Yeah, Peter's definitely going to attack to put the pressure on.
Yeah, there we go.
And now it's tied up at 4. So
because he can't really just sit around and wait for, lands to get drawn, because he will.
Man, I really feel like Philip could have had this game if he had just left those extra lands in his deck and not pulled them out early. Oof. That is...
Well, given how close he is, I think that's true. I think that he could have got him that game.
Yeah, he would have been able to have him because he could have double land taxed and gotten 6 lands. I mean, he would have needed to have 4 in his hand, but he could have at least done, I think he would have been 6. So let's say he had 2 lands in hand. He would have had 8. He could have done at least 16. And then he had a chain lightning too. So that would have been 19 damage. All right. Well, okay. So that brings us to the conclusion of our semifinals for tournament number 12. Peter takes this one 2-0. And in our next and final video, we'll be covering the Tournament 12 finals match. Thanks for joining me, John, and thanks for joining us, viewers, and for supporting the channel. And we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.